Alright, these are your video notes for Geometry Basics for Red Chapter 8.1. Make sure you date your notes. Your essential question, explain how XY is different from XY. And, alright, so I've left off the symbols there, had to draw those back in there. So the two XYs you can see have different symbols. Today's notes are all going to be about vocabulary. We're beginning chapter 10, which gets us into our geometry units. We're going to begin with 2D geometry, then we'll move into 3D geometry, then we'll move into measurement with geometry. Your first words, we're going to put all the words on the left and definitions on the right. As I'm sure you can tell from the background noise, I'm doing this during class, so there's going to be a little bit of background noise, so you might want to turn your volume up. Point. An exact location. At the bottom, after we've done our definitions, we will practice how to write these. Line, a straight path that extends without end in opposite directions. Line segment is a straight path with two endpoints and includes all the points between. Ray has one endpoint and extends in a straight path without end from that endpoint. And a plane is a flat surface that extends without end in all directions. I kind of think of like a tabletop or wrapping paper because those are flat and have no dimension. All right, let's practice actually naming these. Here's our figure. You can see in this figure the orange would be our plane, although of course we can't have it go on forever on a picture, but you have to imagine that it does. Alrighty, we are back to our video. Give me just a moment. I've got a giant little box here that won't go off the screen. So give me just a second. There we go. And we are going to be talking about how do we identify these points and actually write them down, because that's going to be what your assignment is going to ask you to do today. Part of it is to look at a picture and identify a point, identify a line, identify a ray, identify a line segment. So how do you do that? And that's what's also going to be on your test. So looking at this picture, we have several points. A, B, C, D, and E could all be considered a point. And I'm going to scoot the screen down here just a little bit so we get the picture at the top. You do want to have this picture drawn in your notes. Alrighty. So we've got, if we wanted to draw a point, we would just say point A, or you could just write A. Or you could just list them as A, B, C, D, and E. Nothing special there. Just list the points. Alright, next, if you were looking for a line, remember a line extends in opposite directions. It's a straight path that extends forever. So in a picture drawn on a piece of paper, a line is denoted with a straight line with arrows on the end. If it doesn't have an arrow on both ends, it's not a line. So in our case, the only line we have on our paper is a line AB. Now I know point B is not all the way next to the arrow. That's okay. You pick any 2 points that are on that line, and then the way you write it is how you tell the difference. So if I'm actually talking about a line, AB, then I would write my symbol like this. Okay, so because I draw the symbol with 2 arrows, that makes it a line. Now, if I wanted to make a line segment, then I would make my points look like this. I would still write AB, but I just put a line. And you can put endpoints on it, but that's just time-consuming and uses up pencil lead that you don't have to do. Just a straight line. And on the picture, what that means is, let me change my pen color here so I'm not writing in the exact same color. The line segment goes just between A and B. That's the line segment, just that little piece right there. That's what segment means. It means a piece of a line. Okay? Now if I wanted to talk about, I can't remember how to change my pen color. Oh well. If we're talking the line, entire line, we're talking all the way from up here, all the way through that line segment, all the way down, and it continues. So imagine it actually goes all the way down here. But we're not going to include that in our picture because that would just be messy. But the line segment is just that little part, whereas the line continues on forever, even though we've used the same letters. You could also use BE as an example. You could write that both as a line, and you could write it as a line segment. Now, BE and line EB are exactly the same thing. There is no difference. So if you're looking for two lines, you can't write BE and EB. They're exactly the same line. That's one line. Whenever you're writing a line or a line segment, it doesn't matter which order the letters come in. I just tend to always write them in alphabetical order just because it's a little easier organizational wise, but honestly it doesn't matter. Alright, so now let's talk, what was our next word? Raise. Actually, let's talk plane first because that one's easier. Our plane, remember this is our plane. I always like to think of the surface of a table, a sheet of paper, the floor, all flat surfaces that extend forever. We can't actually represent a plane because we don't have anything that extends forever, but we have depictions of them as a picture. So this parallelogram would be our plane, and you label a plane using 3 points. So you need 3 points to name a plane, and those 3 points need to not be on the same line. So we don't want to use AB or BE because those are on the same line. It's better for us to use C, D, B, or we could use C, D, E, or we could go C, D, A. Any of those, as long as they're 3 points and they're not on the same line. Clean this up a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to label my plane as C, D, E when you write your plane. And you actually write the word plane in front of it. So those are our 3 letters. Scoot over so I can be a little neater. So we would write that this is plane in lowercase letters without capitalizing, and then capital C, capital D, capital E. Makes a difference because if they're capital in the picture, then it'd be capital in your labels. Alright, now let's talk about a line array. We did lines, we did line segments, we did points. We've talked about planes. I'm actually going to add point over here so it's matching everything else we've got here. Just a little neatness factor. Alrighty. So now we're going to talk about array. Now array is similar to a line, and I always like to think of a ray of sunshine. It starts in one spot and then extends forever in the opposite direction in a straight line. So a ray of sunshine starts at the sun and then continues on. And if you've ever seen after a rainstorm, you can actually see the sunshine on a clear day, and you can't see where those rays of sun end. So when we write it, we're actually going to write it, in this case, we're going to use B, A. Now notice my letters are in backwards order from the way they were before, A, B. In array, it makes a difference which way you write your letters. Your symbol always goes to the right, so it starts with an endpoint and has one arrow. And your letters have to match where is that endpoint to the letter. So looking at our picture, I'm starting at the endpoint B and I'm continuing forever towards the A. So that's my ray. Okay? So that's why I have to write it BA, starting here and doing the arrow. You don't draw your arrow backwards the other direction. That is incorrect. Okay? Another ray in this picture would be AB, technically. And that ray would start here at A and continue all the way down this direction. Okay, so we'd call that AB. Remembering, even though the B is up here, it's okay. It doesn't have to be down by the arrow. There are also two additional rays in this picture. I want you to try and figure those out. See if you can do those. Pause for a second. Alrighty. Welcome back. After you've paused, you should have your other two rays. Check and see if you're right. Did you get BE? And then EB. Alright. Remember, a ray is the only one where the letters actually make a difference. If you write them the wrong way, your endpoint and arrow may not be over the right letter. Make sure your endpoint is over the correct letter and then your arrow is over the letter that it needs to be. All right, have a good evening.